Hey, what's happening? It's Sean Wallace coming to you from Denver, Colorado, and another video where we want to talk about some wealth principles, some financial literacy principles. So in this video, I just want to talk really about the topic of this video is more around family legacy moves, right? I want to talk to you about the family legacy moves that have been passed down to us and that we are going to be passing on to our kids and their kids' kids, right? So super passionate about today's topic. I just want to hop right into it. I got my notes. You can see I've taken a ton of notes, so I'm going to be referring to them just throughout this video. I'll try to keep this video pretty short, but definitely want to get this information out there. So the question I want to ask you about, like I said, the topic is about family legacy moves. So we're going to talk about that. But what I want to start off first with is, have you ever felt like there's not enough time in the day, or that the expenses, living expenses that you're dealing with right now are just too high in the household, and from all those things you're dealing with a lot of stress, right, in your life? If so, this message is definitely going to be for you, because I was there too as well. I think we all can relate, right? So what I want you to do for this information here, I just want you to like and share this video for me, okay? Just like and share this video. This is absolutely, there's nothing for sale here. I want to be able to just impact a lot of people's lives. So share this with anyone that you know, like, and care about, love, care about. For anyone that you know who can be impacted by understanding more about leaving that family legacy move and changing that up. So once again, have you ever felt like there's not enough time in the day, right? Running around, having to take care of the kids and running back and forth, and just not enough time in the day to really do the things that we enjoy doing because we're constantly working, right? And then on top of that, the expenses for us taking care of the day-to-day life is, like I say, the expenses are so high, right, that it feels like trying to survive is super expensive, and then that's just stressful, right? So I just want to talk to you about in today's video why that is and how we need to change that family legacy move. So that's the first thing I just wanted to ask you. So the first point that I wanted to pull up in this video is, the system was not designed for W-2 workers or 1099 self-employed people to actually, I don't want to say benefit, it just wasn't designed for their best interest. I guess that's the best way to put it, right? The system is not designed for W-2 earners and 1099 self-employed people in their best interest. So this is what I want to share with you is why is that, right? It's just the way it is. To be honest with you, the system is designed for people who understand how to take advantage of the way that the capitalistic society is created. So that's what I want to talk about. So with that being said, like if it's not designed for a W-2 earner or a 1099 self-employed person, who is it designed for? Well, we'll get to that in just a minute. But how do we benefit from it? That's one of the reasons that it feels like there's so much time. Things are expensive and stressed. So that's the first thing I wanted to kind of point out, was that the system wasn't designed for that. But we're the backbone, right, of the economy, if you will. Besides businesses, we'll talk about that. But really, if we're working hard, why is it that it feels like we can't really get ahead? So I want to talk a little bit about that. And my second point was I want to talk about the three major stats that I got from Black Entrepreneur Enterprise. I'm sorry, from blackenterprise.com. Okay. And yes, it is a black website. This is not a racial thing. It's just, obviously, right? So, but it's not a racial thing. It's just I always like to be curious on how can I help everyone as a whole really understand financial literacy. But I definitely look at my community, African Americans, and how we're affected a little bit more than other people, and it has nothing to do with race. It just is what it is because of the family legacies that's been passed down. So from blackenterprise.com, you go look this up yourself. African Americans' wealth may fall to zero by 2053. So we're going to head into 2020, right? So that's only 33 years that potentially the black wealth could actually fall to absolute zero. So I just want to bring up a few stats on where they kind of got that from. And the reason I say passing down the legacy. So when I talk about, there's not enough time, expenses are high, and things of that nature, it brings on stress. Just think about the system that was taught to us. Go to school, get a good education, go work a job for maybe we work 40 hours a week, for 40 years to potentially retire from that particular job. Well, I want to ask you, has that system really worked well for you, or your parents, or your grandparents, regardless of race, right? Like I said, this has nothing to do with black, but I am bringing these statistics from Black Enterprise. But just as a whole, has that system really worked for you, right? How efficient has that actually been for you? Now, granted, now that's just why I wanted to bring up some of these stats. Now, granted, it has worked for a select few, but here's the thing that I want to talk about. It's not the educational piece; it's the economical piece. So let me just break out some of these notes, and this is the 3 big facts I want to just kind of point out. If the economy is actually growing at 3%, meaning inflation is going at 3%, and we want to be able to create wealth, right? The topic of this is family legacy moves, meaning that you can pass down things in your family for legacies, right? Generations and generations and so forth. So if the economy is growing, inflation is growing at 3% every year, that means you need to have an income that's growing at least 6%, so that way you can have enough, your money's outgrowing the cost of living. So that's why I was saying, if it feels like the expenses and so forth are always high, it's because they are, right? The cost of living is always going up. Does it always feel like you're trading more time for money? It's because you are, right? It's because there's taxes and stuff coming out of the check and so forth. So we're actually never getting above the cost of living, let alone being able to invest into our future. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out. Let's just talk about school for a little bit. Now, I don't bash education because I think education is super important, but let's just talk about, I want to give you some stats, and I'm really focused on the single black women, just because, once again, that's where the stats came from, and I'm going to relate it to, let me just hop into it. It makes sense in a minute. So it just says single black women with a bachelor's degree, ages from 20 to 39, net worth is a negative $11,000 to zero, while the white woman has a net worth of $3,400 to $7,500. Okay, now going into a black woman who's over the age of 60, her net worth is about $11,000, while the white woman's net worth is $384,000. Right, that's a huge gap. So this goes back to the overall topic, like, in the African American community, the wealth can be down to zero. So once again, this has nothing to do with race. It's just the legacies that's been passed down. So this is another thing I wanted to point out. Was married black women, right? So if we do that in there with bachelor's degree over the age of 60, their net worth would be $424,000, while the white woman's net worth would be $778,000. So it's not too much of a gap there. But my point of this, once again, is that it has nothing to do with being racist at this point. It's just about the facts. So what I wanted to share out here was, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because what we're taught. It's just really about what we're taught. So when we look at loans, right, like to get education, we were taught to get these school loans and so forth. But this is what I want to share with you is 77.7% of people who are black get loans to go to school to further their education, and then a 57.5% of white people get loans to further their education. So my point of that is, once again, it has nothing to do with race, it has to do with the numbers. So this is what I wanted to share with you is we need to actually change the conversation of actually working harder versus working smarter. Because here's where one thing that once I seen is, this was very eye-opening, is that the transfer of money only goes from one institution to another institution. Okay, so watch this. So we were taught to go to school, right? So then we need to get a student loan to go to school, right? So that's the only reason I was bringing up these statistics, because everyone gets loans to go to schools, because we're all taught this. It doesn't really matter of race. So we go to school to get a loan, to get a college loan, but then now we need to pay for that loan. So now we're working to pay for a student loan, right? So that hopefully that student loan will get us the education that can give us enough knowledge to go into the marketplace to get a job, right, that's paying a certain amount of income, right, based off the education that we have. But now that we have this job, if we land one in that arena, right, that we went to school for, most people would change their actual career over 13 times. So that's another conversation. But we go into the marketplace. Now we have the job, but now we still have that student debt. And if we don't understand the way interest works and how those student loans work, we could be paying on them forever. So now the job that I actually have, I'm still using to pay for the education that I have. So it offsets really what I'm actually bringing in, because inflation and stuff is still going up. So this is why it feels like always like there's not enough time of the day. It's because that system is not designed. Regardless of how much education you actually have, it's very rare to be able to get ahead to be able to pay for the debt that we're actually in. So my point of that was that we actually need to learn on how to allocate more money towards investments to be able to free up our time. So that's what I want to talk about. That leads me into my third point, is how do we learn on how to actually have money start working for us so we don't have to work so hard for the money. It's really not about working harder, it's about working smarter understanding on how to benefit from the system that wasn't designed for W-2 earners or 1099 self-employed people. So hopefully that makes sense. What I want you to do, like I say, is like and share this video if you find that this is valuable. And I want to give you actually a resource, right? So in my other notes here, I want to give you a resource on if you want to find a way on how to be able to buy your time back. That's basically what it boils down to. I wrote down here on how to buy your time. Right? Our time is our most valuable asset that we actually own, and we trade it for money. So how can we actually get the money back to buy our time back? See, when you have money, now you have more time freedom. See what I'm saying? So it's about how can we actually buy our time back, and that's learning on how to have money actually working for us. If you want to learn on how to turn so expenses, we talked about how the expenses are super high, right? Things of that nature. So if you want to learn on how to actually turn your personal expenses, right, into business expenses, so that way you can actually lower the amount of taxes that you're paying and actually increase cash flow, that's going to be part of this resource. And then I put down here stress, because when I looked up what causes stress, the better it's either employment or a lack of money is the main reasons for high stress levels. So I want to give you a resource I can share with you on how to actually buy your time back, how to actually turn your personal expenses into business expenses, and then overall that should be able to relieve some stress and start understanding on how we need to really learn on how to have money actually working for us. So hopefully you found this valuable. If that's something in your nature where you want to, like I say, learn that, just go ahead and do me a couple of favors. Just like and share this video, number one. And then two is just comment family legacy moves, right? Family legacy moves, and I'll inbox you with the resource on how to do those things. Buy your time back, turn your personal expenses into business expenses, and how to be able to alleviate the overall stress. So once again, this is Sean Wallace. I hope you found this video very valuable, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until then, I look forward to watching you have the success that you were always meant to have. You have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.